Well, my man, we are hitting a bit of a milestone here today. Final day of 2021. Happy New Year to everyone listening, by the way. Welcome to the Walkoff. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by my good buddy Adam Mack. And I'm not sure if you've kept track or not, but this is actually episode 100
Is it?
today.
Oh,
Yes,
nice. Yeah,
sir. Ending 2021, hitting triple digits with this podcast.
amazing.
But it feels so surreal how much progress this little thing has made over the
Oh,
last
it's
18
incredible.
months. It's ridiculous. So, for those of you who are tuning in, number one, thank you so much. This community has kind of become a thing of its own. But when we first started, just to kind of put in perspective where we are right now, for about the first 6 months of this thing, we had between 15 to 20 listeners a week, mostly friends and family. Adam's dad was our most loyal listener.
Yeah, shout out to
When we'd
Pops.
post, yeah, that's right. When we posted on YouTube, we'd get somewhere between 20 to 40 views a video.
On a good day.
And yeah, on a good day. And we literally are at the point right now where we are having over 1,000 downloads on our audio a month.
Yeah, we just hit 1,100 for December, so that's our biggest month by far to date. I
So
think our old
thank
record
you
was
so much
700, and that was
who
right around the trade deadline.
to everyone who has downloaded us on Apple, who has followed us on Spotify or Google or wherever you get your podcast. It is greatly appreciated. And YouTube has been ridiculous. We literally are getting thousands of views almost every single video we put out. Even when it's just Adam and I doing our mailbag,
Yeah,
we normally hit 300 to 500. So thank you so much to all of you who have been a part of this walk-off adventure of ours. And the podcast continues to grow, and we cannot thank you enough. And we're super excited about 2022. And even our guests, right, buddy?
yeah. So I put together. Now, this is not at all a definitive list, and does not enough room on this list for every name. But here's some notable guests we've had. So past Blue Jays legends, I guess would be the term for it. Would be Sean Green and Pat Henkin. Current Blue Jays: Tim Meza, Taylor Sacedo, Kirby Sneed, Josh Palacios. We've got future Blue Jays prospects that are going to be cracking the show probably within the next year or two. Jordan Groshans, Chavez Young, Zach Logue, and like dozens of other prospects.
Yeah,
We've had great interviews with people inside the Blue Jays organization, from the assistant
right.
director of high performance, Dara Harris. She was awesome. We also spoke with Jimmy Van Ostrand and Ben Freakley of the mental performance division, which was a cool dynamic with both of them on the show there. Countless broadcasters involved in Sportsnet and from across the internet and MLB.com. Shai Davidi, Arden Zwelling, and Ben Nicholson Smith. Dan Schulman, who's incredible.
Yeah,
Jamie Campbell and Arash Madani. We also had Rob Wong on. We've even had players from the men and women's Canadian national team, which is super
right.
cool. Kelsey Lawler, Ali Schroeder, Tyson Gillies, Michael Kraus. Um,
It
it's
feels
just been
surreal,
incredible.
dude.
Yeah,
Like like we did this.
yeah,
Like we talked. Like I still can't wrap my head around that.
yeah.
It's so crazy. And honestly, everyone, we are not done yet. Like we've already got lined up for 2022. Chad Dallas, Chetta, out of the University of Tennessee. He's joining us next Wednesday. He's going to be our first guest of 2022. He was, of course, drafted in the fourth round by the Blue Jays in 2021. One of their top prospects already, big righty out of Tennessee. So we're excited to chat with him. Jordan Groshans has decided to come back on the show, which is exciting. He's still one of the Blue Jays' top prospects and very well could make his debut in 2022 if he
Certainly.
isn't traded, right?
Hmm.
I know both Arash Madani and Keegan Matheson. Keegan, of course, of MLB.com. He's been on the show before. They're both trying to make time for us in the new year. So very exciting stuff.
Hmm.
And very big show today, too. I mean, this is our final
Yeah.
show of 2021. So we're going to get into the Jays' biggest needs as we head into 2022. Adam and I actually picked our Blue Jays' big impact players of 2021. So we'll share that with you, and then we predict the big impact players from 2022. We Also, today we'll get into the longest playoff droughts in baseball currently and kind of take a look back at what this Blue Jays team looked like when we were missing the playoffs. 2018 was the dark time, and we'll go over that lineup, kind of a fun way to end the show.
Yeah.
So let's do it, buddy. Let's jump in.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with our areas of need as the Blue Jays go into 2022. And some of these are already well known by everybody. And how we decided this is we kind of went through the lineup and saw where the lack of production was in 2021. And one area that we didn't talk much about on the show over the last few months has been the designated hitter. And this is an area that kind of went under the radar, but the DH position for the Jays in the last year was one of the few positions that really lacked at the plate. Surprisingly enough, they only slugged 23 home runs out of that DH spot and only had an OPS of just over 700, 706. And really what it was used to do was to cycle through injured players.
I was just going to say
who couldn't be in the field. And George Springer played less than half of the season last year. He was our big $150 million signing last offseason. Everyone was incredibly excited about him. He did play very well when he was in the lineup, but he barely played on the field at all. He had 40 games in center field, 38 of them at DH. And the truth is, if he wasn't being cycled through that DH spot, he would have played a quarter of the season.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, do you think we see the Blue Jays bet on Springer being a more healthy contributor in 2022? I think they almost have to. I think you need to bet on him playing 120 to 140 games in center field next year. Do you feel that's an accurate representation of what this front office is thinking?
Well, what would be the alternative strategy to assume that he's not going to be? And
right? And you can't do that. You can't assume the worst, right?
Not on year 2 of a multi-year 9-figure deal.
100%. So this brings up the question of, do you think it's possible that this front office does something with this DH position? And I'm not saying, because we know how this front office loves versatility and loves the ability to cycle players through multiple positions, and they like using that DH position to give guys days off. But do you think with the lack of production we saw at the DH spot in 2021 that perhaps they go out and get a guy who's going to fill that DH spot for not even all of the games? Let's say 80. Let's say 50% of those DH spots are all of a sudden a given. Maybe a guy like, I don't know, Freddie Freeman?
You want to bring... that would be nice. That is definitely...
I'm just saying,
stars with it.
And I am using Freddie as a best case scenario here. But maybe there is a position where they can go out and get a bigger lefty bat who isn't as versatile in the field, play him at DH 50% of the time. Because let's use Freeman as an example again, and I know that we're shooting for the stars here. But let's say they do go out and sign Freeman to a big multi-year contract. If you're expecting Freddie to play DH at 32 years old for 50% of the games, kind of an Edwin Encarnacion idea back in 2016. All of a sudden, if you put Freddie at first base for 40 games, and then Vladdy's playing the rest of the time, let's say 20 games at DH, 20 at third, and he plays the rest of the time at first base, all of a sudden that doesn't seem as crazy, right?
Doesn't seem as crazy. I don't know. I don't know if that's the... Oof.
If that's the play.
It's just a big commitment to... Like, he's going to want big money, right? In order to lure him away from the defending World Series champions. He's not going to do that for anything other than a massive deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know if that's where we want to invest our massive deals.
And I feel the same way. We do need a big lefty bat. It would definitely fix this right-handed heavy order problem of the Blue Jays. And the DH spot is an area of need. We'll need to wait and see what happens. But it is something to think about. That DH spot definitely surprised me when I was going through all the numbers. And I was like, wow, like designated hitter was not a very strong position for the Blue Jays last year. And they had a lot of strong hitters. They just, when they were cycling through the DH spot, it just was an area that lacked. So
here's just for kicks and giggles. We saw the Tampa Bay Rays go out and get an aging, primarily DH player last year in Nelson Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying the Jays should go get Nelson Cruz, but as far as an aging slugger, he's not a left-handed bat, but he is only 21 home runs away from a pretty big milestone of 700 career home runs.
Wow.
Albert Pujols is a free agent.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a good fit with this team in any stretch of the imagination, but if we're looking for an everyday DH who wouldn't cost much money,
That's
Albert
true.
Pujols. And I know Trevor Freeman's listening to this, and
Oh, yeah.
he's loving
banging
the
that
idea.
Pujols drum. Yeah, absolutely.
No,
other areas of need. Oh,
yeah,
go
let's
ahead.
let's move on from the DH. But
Yeah.
it is definitely
Now-
like you said, it's been a position that we've just used as like to give guys day off, and it's been an absolute afterthought. So
It has been. So maybe having someone there, and again, I'm not even saying let's get a guy who's going to fill that spot 162 games, but maybe somebody who's filling the spot 80 games is going to benefit this team. Something for the front office to consider.
like a Rowdy Tellez type.
Exactly.
Just bring him
who
back.
hits better, yes,
left-handed,
who are more consistently anyways. And I love Rowdy, but okay. Now, the next position of need, everybody is aware of. This is a dead horse that has been beat all offseason, but third base, we've talked a ton about it. Obviously, offensively was a black hole last year. Santiago Espinal, no offense to him. He did hit 300 when he was in the lineup. However, I do believe that this front office kind of views him as their utility infielder, a guy who kind of has cycled through the lineup and doesn't play every day. I know there's a lot of Blue Jays fans out there who would like him to get his shot as an everyday player. I'm kind of leaning on the side of he is a utility guy and you don't wish to mess with something that's working. However, that is an option. Internally, I don't think that's the way the Blue Jays are going to go for this third base hole. We did just see on Wednesday, Kyle Seager retired. He was a lefty bat and a very proficient third baseman with the Mariners. He was a free agent, and you know that the Blue Jays were sniffing around there. So if that was an option they were thinking of, and when I say an option, it means that they're trying to bridge the gap between Jordan Groshans and what's going on in 2022. So Kyle Seager could have been that bridge, now retired, so they would need to go a different direction if they are looking to do it that way. And of course, they could go out and get a big free agent or make a splash in the trade area. This next position was one that surprised me at first from a peripheral standpoint until you kind of start getting into it and you realize, oh yeah, of course this was an area of need. Center field was probably the biggest glaring hole in this Blue Jays lineup in 2021. The spot Springer was signed to fill, and he produces way more than what was produced last year. So last year, the club hit an average of batting average of 242 with an OPS of 750 in that center field position. Again, these numbers are terrible in comparison to what Springer puts up and did put up. So a healthy Springer, the truth is probably going to be the biggest boost to this team in 2022. If George Springer can stay on the field for 120 to 140 games, it is going to be massive for that center field position. And I think he's going to.
I think you're right. I really do have faith in this Blue Jays organization as being one of the top tier organizations away from the field. I really think
Yes.
that they've invested a lot of time and money into their system. I think they have a lot of incredible support staff in place. And I really think that coming in, now he's had a full year with the organization. I really think they're going to get him right in terms of his rehab and just everything from the eating side of things. Like, I'm not saying he wasn't eating well in Houston,
No,
but
of course. And of course, guys go through years where it's just an injury year and it's really tough to deal with. But I agree 100% with everything you're saying. And one thing that really opened both of our eyes to this was sitting down with Dara Harris, the assistant director of high performance, and just how in depth the organization gets into the whole mental side of things, the physical side of things, the dietary side of things, even the brand new training facility that was just completed in Dunedin last year says a million things about this organization and how important and how much value they put on proper training,
yeah.
and having the proper facilities available and having the proper coaches in place to execute this sort of stuff. So I do agree with you. I think that having the time for George to get himself right is going to be huge. He's still only 32. I think that this 2022 season is going to be big for him.
I think so too.
The last area of need for 2021 is already shaping up far better for 2022, which was the bullpen. And of course, if you were a Blue Jays fan in 2021, we all banged our head against some wall at some point in the season about this bullpen.
Absolutely. April looked great.
Yeah.
Start of May was okay, and then it got real dark.
Oh, there were
During
3
the middle
weeks
of
in May there where we were all ready to just
But
jump
by the end
off
of
a
the year, we
ledge.
had mostly figured it out. And
Exactly.
through the
But it was
start of the off season, we've continued to build on that. But we do have some more work to do in the bullpen.
So Yimi Garcia was a massive ad that kind of was under the radar this offseason. Yimi, of course, was the closer for the Miami Marlins last year. He's got a lot of high leverage experience in himself. He was traded to the Astros at the trade deadline to bolster their pen. He struggled a little bit in Houston. However, the Blue Jays did manage to pick him up for 2 years, $11 million. That adds some depth at the back end of that bullpen where you're going to see Jordan Romano, the Markham Madman, and of course, Tim Meza. Tim Meza, by the way, what an incredible story he is, because the truth is Tommy John surgery is a nightmare for any pitcher, and the rehab and the isolation and the loneliness that goes into that is something that is very difficult, let alone to deal with rehabbing during the pandemic. Like when Tim was rehabbing, and he came on the show and he talked about this, but when Tim was rehabbing, it was in a portion of the pandemic where they were only doing Zoom calls. They weren't allowed to gather. They weren't allowed to use the facilities. He was literally on his own. And then for him to come in 2021 and be the savior that he was, and I'm not overstating it. I truly don't believe that I am overstating it when I'm saying that he was a savior. He became the highest leverage left-handed pitcher in that bullpen. Nobody saw that coming.
No. I don't think
And he's
Tim
at an
saw it
age
coming.
too. I don't think he saw it coming. And he's at an age too at 30 years old, and he's got some experience under his belt where he's ready to make that next step and be that big-time, high-leverage southpaw full-time in 2022, and I think that's what we're going to see out of him. And he even mentioned on the show when he came on was that he really realized how deadly his two-seamer was. You know, he was always a four-seam guy, started throwing the two-seamer again, a little Pete Walker tidbit, right? And all of a sudden, he becomes dominant. Another thing to watch in this Blue Jays bullpen is Thomas Hatch. Okay, so Thomas Hatch is healthy again. He, of course, was a big contributor in that bullpen in 2020, something that a lot of Blue Jays fans forget. And then the Blue Jays really wished him to be a starter. They were not finished trying to turn him into a starter. And I think another year has passed. He's another year older, and I truly believe the Blue Jays are probably going to look at Thomas and be like, you know what? Let's get you back in the bullpen where we saw some success with you before. Mm-hmm. Anthony Castro's another dark horse guy who really came out of nowhere for the Blue Jays in the bullpen last year and really performed admirably, and he has some very good pitches, and he's a guy who can throw 96, 97. He's going to look good. I think Adam Simber and Trevor Richards are already mainstays at the back end of that bullpen. A healthy Ryan Baraki is going to be massive. Mm-hmm. The bullpen looks a lot better. Merriweather, if he can stay healthy. Absolutely. That's a great point. So bullpen was one of the biggest areas of need for this Blue Jays team in 2021, and already I feel so much more confident about it as we go forward. Another under-the-radar signing the Blue Jays did was they did go out and they got David Phelps again to a minor league deal. And I know David Phelps was incredible for this team in May before he got injured. He was like the one high-leverage guy who continued to perform. So I'm excited. This bullpen obviously is probably going to get another ad or two before the beginning of spring training. I think that the front office isn't finished there, and it is a project.
Look, Rogers has money to spend. There's some flexibility there to go out and add another arm or two to the bullpen for sure.
Rogers.
Let's
talk about Rogers for a second. No, great segue. You're not the best co-host in the biz for nothing, buddy.
Best co-host on the show, anyways.
Rogers has deep pockets. They actually did a list of the richest MLB ownership groups, and Rogers ranks second in all of baseball behind only billionaire Steve Cohen with the New York Mets. Now, this doesn't necessarily translate into the highest budgets, but let's not kid ourselves. Rogers, if they decide to put some chips in here, they 100% have the money to do it and won't even sweat it. Mm-hmm. On top of that, Rogers is a corporation that views the revenue streams that are available differently than maybe a small market team does, right? They're prepared to spend money and make money off stuff like merchandising, off stuff like if they go out and get,
they're vertically integrated through their own TV network, right? So if
100%,
if Blue Jays are popular and winning, they're making more money on Sportsnet ads. Like
$200 million as a yearly salary for this team, I do not think is a stretch. I do not think it's that crazy. And we've talked about this before. Why would Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins go through a rebuild? The nightmare that is a rebuild in Cleveland. Get that team to where they're winning and then leave to come to Toronto to do it again if they weren't promised that they were going to be able to spend once they rebuild. So I think that's what we're going to see. And I think that's why you continue to hear rumors about the Blue Jays being in on guys for $180 million, right? We're talking Freddie Freeman there. But even the fact that these Carlos Correa rumors won't go away, and I know that agents obviously use the Blue Jays all the time to drive up the price of their free agents. I'm aware of this. And yes, the Blue Jays are always doing their due diligence and checking on everyone. Also aware of that. But where there's smoke, there's fire. We watched them sign George Springer to $150 million. We watched them sign Kevin Gausman to $110 million. We watched them re-up Jose Barrios for $120 million. We have seen them spend like we have never seen them spend before. And to think that they're just going to turn the tap off now is kind of silly and counterintuitive. Anything to add there?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think you made a good point about Toronto fans. Sometimes we feel like Toronto is just used as a team to drive up the price in another team that's the real destination. But I think we all probably felt that when we heard the rumors of George Springer signing with us. And guess what? Then he did, right? So
yep.
I think the tides of momentum and spending in Toronto are changed. I think they were changing and now they've changed. And I think we're just legitimate now. And this is good.
So again, one day away from 2022, we figured it would be a fun thing to do for both Adam and I to pick a couple players, a position player and a pitcher each that was a huge impact in 2021, and then we'll predict who we think is going to be some big impact players in 2022. Did you wish to start with this, or did you want me to start?
You go ahead.
Okay, so let's start with the position player. I'm taking an easy one here to begin with.
Okay.
We're going to start with our first baseman. Second in MVP voting, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s coming out season. If there was a more impact player in baseball besides maybe Shohei Ohtani, I'd like to hear about it. But he was absolutely incredible after so much doubt and so many people kind of giving up on him and saying ridiculous things like trade him while he still has some value. He came out and had a monster year, 48 home runs. He flirted with 300 most of the season. The guy, he finished with what? I think it was a 310 batting average. The guy's a superstar. He's a superstar. And he showed the world that that's exactly what he is. So that is my impact player for the Blue Jays in 2021.
Well, you definitely took the best target on the board. I think the second obvious choice would be Marcus Semien, who finished third in MVP voting. But that's not a very fun one for me to list because he's not a Blue Jay anymore. So
that's right.
It would be too bittersweet to really start talking about how awesome Marcus Semien was for us last year. So I'm going to pivot to the other side of the diamond, Bo Bichette. We all know I'm a big supporter of Bo Bichette, and
he really did have an under-the-radar great 2021, didn't he?
He had an incredible, if it wasn't for Vlad and Marcus Semien really, I guess, stealing the show, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right? He was incredible.
He was.
I don't know what else. I mean, sure, were his numbers maybe supported by the fact that he had guys like Vlad and Semien protecting his bat in the lineup? Yeah, absolutely.
But you can say the same thing about Vlad and Semien.
Exactly.
Right?
How many RBIs did they get with Bo on base, right? Or vice versa, right? So I really think that he, despite having a 300 season, scoring just an insane amount of runs, RBIs.
Yeah.
He's a doubles guy.
Led the league in hits, 192 hits.
What more could you ask for? He really solidified defensively, despite a lot of Blue Jays fans still thinking he's trash at shortstop. I'm not one of them. I was worried about him at shortstop coming into the season. I've done a full 180. I'm completely behind him now.
Yeah.
I think he just had an incredible season.
He did struggle off the top of the year, but he finished strong.
Yeah, but I think he just doesn't get enough credit for what he has done and the hitter he's become, because he was overshadowed by just
monster
absolute
seasons.
Insane seasons by Vladdy and another really, really good season out of Marcus Semien. So
great pick. Love it. Let's go to pitchers. Now I'm going with a bullpen pitcher here. We did already touch on him when we were talking the bullpen, but I think the impact player in the bullpen was Tim Mesa, lefty that no one saw coming, rehabbing off of Tommy John surgery, put up a 3.4 ERA, and let's face it, he struggled mightily for 3 weeks in May. He was blowing up a couple times. If you take those 3 weeks out of May, and I know that's not how baseball works, however, if you take those 3 weeks of May out, he has a below 2 ERA. He was unhittable for this team. He was one of the best high leverage bullpen arms for the final 3 months of this season for this team, bar none. Right on par with Jordan Romano. The two of them were shut down in that 8 and 9 inning.
No, I think Tim Hayes is a great choice. Yeah, I don't know. I think Tim Mesa is the Bo Bichette of our pitching staff. I think just
A little overshadowed by some of the other things going
Yeah,
on.
there was some big guys pitching that really got a lot of credit, but I really think that, especially like early in the season when we started going through our injuries, like he really kept this team afloat. So
He did. Yeah.
um, yeah. So my pitcher for the 2021 season that I think had a phenomenal impact on this team was Alek Manoah.
Yes, great choice.
Was he our best starting pitcher in our rotation? No, he wasn't.
No.
But the impact that this kid had was
Monster.
monster. I mean, there was some incredible fielders across the league who kind of ran away with the Rookie of the Year um, nomination, candidacy. I don't know the right word I'm looking for here, but and he came up later in the year, right? He missed April,
Yeah.
so he wasn't ever really talked about in the Rookie of the Year candidate. But I think he should have been.
I think
I
so
don't.
too.
I don't think he deserved to win, but I do think like he had, for a Blue Jays fan base that had been hearing nothing but incredible hyperboles about Nate Pearson, and then to have Nate Pearson kind of stumble at a few points in his development. And I'm not saying like he's a bust or anything like that. That's a
No,
talk
for
for
sure.
another day, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like for 2 or 3 years now, we've been hearing about Nate Pearson is like our next ace. He's our big fireball starting pitcher, top of the rotation, kind of ceiling to his potential. And after watching him struggle for the last year or two, when he's gotten to the MLB level, we've been kind of like, I think, collectively down on our pitching prospects. And Alek Manoah really just burst onto the scene and I think really like took up that mantle of like, no, we got a lot of good young pitchers, and Alek Manoah is. Last year, I think Alek Manoah had the season that we were hoping we would get from Nate Pearson.
100%. I think you just nailed it. 100%.
So,
All right, let's move on.
I think he's gonna have a great season next year too. But I think he had an awesome season. So let's move on now to our look ahead.
Yes. So we are now going to predict who we think are going to be the impact players for 2022. And it's kind of funny that the players you just picked for impact players in 2021, because I'm going to start with my position player that I think is going to be a massive impact for this Blue Jays organization. And I'm going with Bo Bichette. And for a lot of the same reasons you went with him for 2021, right? 192 hits. This is a guy who puts the ball in play. This is a guy who stole, what was it? I think it was 27, 28.
Yeah, something like that.
Stolen bases. This is a guy that could literally hit 30 home runs and steal 30 bases, which would be the first time that has happened on this Blue Jays team since Shannon Stewart and Sean Green. Like, we're talking the 90s, the last time someone did that. And Bo Bichette is right there. This is a guy who runs the bases incredibly well. And I think that now that we've seen him take a little bit of a step forward with his fielding, he's really going to come into his zone. And 2021 is the first full season of Major League Baseball that Bo Bichette has played. So now that he has a 162-game season under his belt, I think he is ready to take that next step. And I think he's going to maybe this time not be overshadowed by Vlad and whoever else, Springer or whatever. I think he really is going to be huge.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the impact and the influence from Marcus Semien that he had all year is going to carry throughout the offseason. We're going to see an offseason of just next level work ethic. And he already had good work ethic, but just in a more refocused kind of way. I think he's really poised for a big breakout. And let me just say, I think for all of our young guys, as much as it sucked the way we missed the playoffs this year, and I mean, came right down to like the last inning of the Red Sox game, and we were all watching, and very hard on everybody. That may have been the best case scenario in terms of like development as a whole for this team.
You know what makes you hungry to win is losing in a devastating fashion.
Devastating losses. Yeah, like I just think there's if we had a snuck in, I think maybe the team goes, yeah, we can, lose some of those ugly games in June and we can still, there's still time to make it up, right? And I think if we had to miss the playoffs by a few games, it wouldn't have been as bad. But just the way we did, it's going to be that like constant reminder at the back of their brain that like when we're down 3 runs in the 8th inning and it's just we're playing Milwaukee and it's just a crappy night, nobody feels good. Like we gotta try.
It's
and
May
rally
27th, and
here. Yeah.
exactly.
So I really think this team's gonna come out. Like I think this team could be a 100 win team next year. I think they're gonna be friggin' hungry.
I think so too.
I love your pick.
I think the division. I think the division is up for grabs, and I think that the Jays are going to take it.
Absolutely. So
all right, let's hear yours.
My pick, and I kind of mentioned this a few months ago, and okay, last year I was kind of down on Bo Bichette defensively. I had done a full 180. This is another player who I was kind of down on across the board. I know you were as well. I was down on him defensively. I was down on him for sure offensively. But I've said it before, and I'm sticking to my prediction here. I think top 5 in the MLB catcher Danny Jansen next year.
Hey, wow, I like that.
I think he had a great September. Does that mean it was just streaky? Perhaps. I really like what we saw out of Danny last year. I think one of those catchers is going to get moved. I don't know if it's Reese McGuire or Alejandro Kirk. I think one of them's going to get moved, and he's going to feel just a little bit of
like the position is his,
like a vote of confidence from the front office that like, hey, this is yours. Here's the keys to the car. Here's the keys to the kingdom. But we still have Gabriel Moreno coming up very quickly. So while it is a vote of confidence in him right now, he also, I think, is smart enough to realize that he's got a great opportunity here, but he has to establish himself as the guy, because if not, we do have another young kid who's nipping at his heels.
The experience it takes to become a very good top-notch catcher is astronomical. There's so much that goes into being defensively sound in that catching position. And Danny has been grinding it out since 2018.
Yep.
And he calls a great game. He's got the confidence of that pitching staff. I love that pick. Love that pick. All right. I'm going to go with pitcher here. This is so funny to me, man. So really, my 2022 impact pitcher is going to be your 2021 impact pitcher. We've just swapped completely, but I'm going to go with Alek Manoah. I think one of the things that really stands out to me about Manoah is how dominant he was from the onset of his call-up. And when he did get beat up, when he did give up a bunch of runs and get pulled, he didn't pout. You never saw Alek Manoah get pulled by Charlie, go into the dugout, and throw his glove. You never saw Alek get upset. In fact, literally when he would get pulled from a game, he was already in talks with the closest catcher and coach about what was going on before he was even had his glove off. The kid is the thirsty guy for knowledge. He wants it. He needs it. And I think that in a lot of cases with a young pitcher, you can expect a sophomore slump. I don't think that's going to be the case with Manoah. I think we're going to see him, honestly, even if he doesn't take a step forward, I think we're going to see him right where he was, which is going to continue to add to his development.
Love that pick. And do you think that he we've got a good, if not great, pitching staff at this point for our rotation. Barrios and Gossman are 1 and 2.
Yes.
I'm not thinking that Manoah can be. He won't be our number 1 or number 2 just based on contract and like status of those guys, right? Like even if he wins the Cy Young this year, he'll still be treated and viewed as though he is not the number 1 or the number 2. But is he our number 3 by the end of the season?
I think it's very likely. And you know what? This also takes so much pressure off of Hinge and Ryu. Yeah. Like, now that he's kind of slotted into that 4-hole in the rotation, obviously he won't be. They're going to separate the righties, so where he'll pitches in the lineup, pitcher. Kind of irrelevant. He'll probably But that said, now that there's not this massive pressure on him to lead this starting rotation quite as much,
I think we're going into last season.
He was our ace, absolutely, and I think that we're going to see him kind of right the ship. Mm-hmm. He's a very smart guy. He's been around a long time, and he's always been a crafty dude. He's never relied on velocity. So I think that Ryu is going to be fine. And again, I think that with Manoah, Gossman, and Barrios ahead of him in the kind of scheme of things, we're going to see a solid year out of Hinge and Ryu. Fingers crossed, anyways. All right.
My pitching candidate, breakout, big step forward, 2022, is our ace, Jose Barrios.
Yeah, love it.
This was a guy we gave up a lot to get. We gave up Austin Martin and Simeon Woods-Richardson to get him.
Two top 5 prospects in the system, which again, you just don't see organizations trade 2 top 5 prospects.
That is a massive price tag. What is he, 27 years old?
Yep. Locked up for the next 7 years.
Right. Just coming into his prime right now. We talked with we heard from a lot of Twins fans commenting on our videos and our posts after this trade. And the general consensus that I got was, well, enjoy him in the summer, but in September, he pitches like crap. Yeah. And he pitched great for us through September.
He really did.
He pitched into the 7th and 8th inning on, looks like, all 6 of his starts.
Yeah. Now, he did have a slight struggle in August, which was really eye-opening as to the caliber of the pitching coach that we have right now. Pete Walker spotted something right away, and a lot of us, we've talked about this a lot, okay? You no longer see Jose Barrios in his windup put his hands over his head. It's a very compact delivery now, and it worked great. And like you said, it corrected it almost instantly, and we saw him dominate throughout the month of September. I think that's a great pick, and fingers crossed it's the way it goes, because they're paying Barrios a lot of money to be that guy.
Totally. Yeah. All right, let's talk now. I mean, there's the obvious.
This is the fun one.
This is good. There's some obvious sexy names for breakout prospects.
Impact guys, yes.
Jordan Groshans could be our third baseman by the end of the season. Sure. Gabriel Moreno, his stock continues to not just rise, but skyrocket. Let's talk under the radar breakout prospects.
Love it.
What do you got?
So for me, I think a guy that Jays fans should be paying attention to is 26-year-old Zach Logue. This is a guy who led the minor league organizations in strikeouts last year. He is known for his pinpoint control. This is a guy who's got a fastball at around 95 and plays off of it very well with a hard slider down and away. Zach is a lefty as well, which is something that is lacking in this Blue Jays starting rotation. Now, my prediction here isn't that Zach Logue breaks in as the 5th starter in this rotation. I think that the Blue Jays are going to go out and get that 5th starter. pardon me, even if it's something like the Rays did last year with Rich Hill, right? Kind of a reclamation project, and then they'll start him in April and let Zach go to Buffalo and dominate there, which he was doing last year. But we could see Zach called up. This is a guy who is on the 40-man roster for this Blue Jays team. And who knows? We could see a big season out of Zach Logue. Injuries happen every single year, and I think that if there is going to be a guy that is promoted in the starting rotation, I think Zach Logue is the guy.
I love it. Like you said, he's, I think, 27 years old now, 25, 26. He's not a kid anymore.
Yes.
I think he's really close, and I think he's a great candidate to really take that step forward. It's funny that you picked Zach Logue, who led the minor leagues in strikeouts last year, because my under-the-radar prospect also led, I believe, the entire Blue Jays organization in strikeouts in 2019, so 2 years ago, and that's Joey Murray.
Love it.
Joey Murray had
a rough year last
year. But before last year, like on the heels of his 2019 season, he was cracking at the top 10 prospect. Like, his stock was rising. He has, I guess, what can only be described as elite on his spin rate for his fastball.
Yes.
He's in the top, like, 1 percentile of spin rate on his fastball. Last year we saw injuries, and basically the
stay healthy.
The entire 2021 season was he didn't really pitch at all. Just an undisclosed arm injury, so his stock really fell, basically just by not being available. He was in rehab all year, which is unfortunate. I think
another guy similar to Logue, where he's 26. Yeah. He's got some experience as a pro ball player. You know, he's pitched in the minors for 5-6 years.
Absolutely. So I feel like if he can start the season healthy and, you know, rebound and start to show that he's still got whatever he had that scouts and the team was high on 2 years ago, you know, this unhittable fastball with the massive spin rate, you know, I think there's a chance he could be in our bullpen by July or August. So,
love it. Great pick. Okay, let's move on here. What we're going to do now is, well, we're going to end our Blue Jays chat here with our 2022 wants. So both Adam and I are having a little fun here, a little speculation. We're each going to pick one guy, if we had a wish, to add to this Blue Jays roster that we can add. Adam, we're going to start with you. If you can pick one guy for 2022.
This is kind of a cheat of an answer, but I just want anyone to fill the third base spot. I don't want a platoon situation. I don't want to treat third base like how we've been treating DH. I don't care who it is, but I want a definitive third baseman so that we can have Kevin Biggio be our full-time second baseman. I want to give him,
he is so much more comfortable at.
I want to just give him one honest crack at being an everyday second baseman, see what he's got, see if he can stay healthy, if he can get his OPS or his on-base percentage back up to where
it was in 2019.
Yeah, and if we can get him back to that, I think he's got a real spot on this team. I just think it's the only way to give him a fair evaluation. The potential's there, and if we can just stop messing with him at right field and third base and left field and covering at shortstop when Bo needs a day off, like, let's just
give him some positional certainty,
some stability, and some confidence, and then let's see what he's got, and then make it a make or break year. And if he can't stay healthy, or if he can't get it. If he can't right the ship and figure out the strike zone like he had nailed down in 2019, then I don't think he has a spot on this team. He's getting older too.
He is. He's 27 now, but one thing about Kevin Biggio that maybe is forgotten at times is that he is a lefty bat, and this is a very right-handed heavy order. And so to have a guy hitting 8th or 9th like Biggio who's getting on base for those big guys at the top of the order, I think that works out fantastic. So if he can kind of refine his form, he's kind of in the same boat as, like, I mean, on the big league team, but as Joey Murray that we just talked about, right? He had a very injury laden season last year, and it's really tough to judge a guy who's just constantly fighting the injury bug. So hopefully he can get healthy, right a ship, get a little positional certainty, and become the player he was in 2019 and 2020.
Absolutely.
I love that answer.
Okay,
I was going to go off the board. I wanted to surprise everyone and pick somebody that, hey, whoa, we hadn't even thought about this. Maybe they could make a trade for this third baseman.
Right.
But the truth is, if I'm just going to be honest with everybody, the one person I want on this team more than anybody, and this is going to shock absolutely nobody, Jose Ramirez. Cleveland Guardians, third baseman, superstar, constant AL MVP votes, one of the best third basemen out there. I think that would be a dream come true for 2022.
I mean, it's an obvious answer, but it's a great answer. Like, absolutely. I think he would.
Yeah.
Depending on the price tag that it takes to get him, and as fans, we have no way of accurately guessing what the price tag really is on somebody when you're measuring the value of contracts and each prospect and your confidence in a prospect to turn out and the needs of our organization versus the needs of the Cleveland Guardians organization, right? Like, there's just so many wrinkles. It's
balls
impossible
in the air
for us to speculate on what the price tag actually is with any sort of accuracy. But I feel like almost any price would be worth paying to bring him in.
I almost agree with that. I know there's a lot of people who say any price, but
Gabriel
Moreno, I kind of am in that boat. But honestly, I think I'd get over it pretty quick if they did move Moreno for him. Jose Ramirez, all-star. He's a superstar. It's so crazy to think that Jose Ramirez on this Blue Jays team, he might be the best player on the team all of a sudden, which is just absolutely wild.
Yeah, lefty bat, third baseman, switch hitting, lefty bat.
Switch hitting, yeah. No, fantastic.
Awesome. Love it.
Okay, let's move on here. I know there was some interesting speculation out of the Minnesota Twins land. They had a couple analysts kind of tossing around the idea of how badly the Twins need pitching, and that should they move and get this, Blue Jays fans, Austin Martin for pitching, which just kind of made me chuckle after watching the Blue Jays move him for Jose Barrios and then manage to secure Barrios over 7 years. It's fantastic. Like, what a contract extension by the Blue Jays.
Well, it's funny because they did just sign Byron Buxton to that big 7-year, 9-figure contract extension. So they've really committed to him to be their center field. I mean, incredible talent from Byron Buxton. He just can't stay healthy and stay on the field, right?
Healthy. Yeah.
So, but the Twins now are committed and invested at center field, right? So I think that's the reason a guy like Austin Martin now is being like, okay, well, maybe he's expendable, right? Like, I think when they brought him in they still hadn't made up their mind on Byron Buxton, and it was like, well, we might need a center fielder who's going to be MLB ready soon. But so it is funny to see now, like, maybe he's not so valuable, and maybe we can get rid of him. So, what does that say about Austin Martin's legitimacy as an MLB level prospect?
I don't know.
You think it's a red flag?
It means he's got value, right? If they figure they can flip him for pitching, it means he still has value. There is a lot of talk about Austin Martin's concern with scouting, which is he lacks power. Only time will tell. The kid is still 21. He turns 22 in a month. So I know there's a lot of people who already wish, especially Jays fans, it's easy to wish to write him off and just be like, yes, we completely won the Jose Barrios trade. But I think Austin Martin still is an extremely talented young man, and I think potential-wise still through the roof. So we'll see what happens there.
Just speaking on the Austin Martin power, In all of 2021, he played a full season.
At Double A.
Hit a total of 5 home runs.
Yeah.
100
That
games,
said,
hit 5 home runs.
In his defense, first year of professional baseball.
Yeah. But again, I think there is something really there of power is what sells sexiness to scouts and to organizations. Just the way the whole league is going, home runs are becoming everything. I hate this attitude. I hate this mindset, but it is what it is, right?
Yes.
If you don't have power, you're not as exciting, and that's kind of the simplest way. That's kind of
where, that's where Martin is kind of falling right now. Time will tell. We'll see what happens there. All right, my man. This has been so much fun. Really appreciate everyone who has tuned in. This is our final episode of 2021, and we're going to end it having a little bit of fun here. So we're going to start with talking about playoff droughts. So who in baseball is experiencing the biggest playoff droughts? Of course, us Blue Jays fans are well aware of how devastating a playoff drought can be. We went 22 years without watching our ball team in the playoffs. Not until 2015 did they return, since 93, their World Series win. So it was a long drought. To put in perspective how bad that drought was, the longest drought currently going in MLB is the Seattle Mariners. They're at 20 seasons without a playoff appearance. Second is Philadelphia at 10 seasons. So it just goes to show you how hard up Seattle is currently. Third biggest drought going on in baseball is the Detroit Tigers at 7 seasons, tied with the Los Angeles Angels at 7 seasons, which is just, my goodness, to see Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani not making the playoffs with Anthony Rendon, who is going to be healthy this year. The Angels are going to make a push. They've got so much money, it's just wild that they can't seem to put it together. 6 seasons is going to be the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Kansas City Royals.
Can I tell you the biggest shock to me about those figures that you just listed?
Yep.
Is the parity in the MLB is pretty impressive, that other than the Mariners.
Yeah.
Basically, like, that is not really a playoff drought even. Like 6,
Agreed.
7, 8, 9 years. I mean, yeah, it is to those fans. It feels like it.
Yeah.
But if you would have told me Pittsburgh hasn't made the playoffs in 25 years, I would have believed you. Right? Like, there's just so many teams that just feel like dog shit. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, they were in the playoffs like 6 years ago. Like, oh, okay. For a league that has such small playoff, like such a small playoff pool, we're not talking about the NHL, where 50% of the teams make the playoffs. Right? Like, less than a third of the league makes the playoffs. And that a drought is only that long, I think that's pretty impressive.
Agreed. It does show that there is a lot of parity in baseball, more than maybe us fans give it credit for.
Yeah.
Okay, let's end on this, because this is kind of fun. While we're talking about playoff droughts, let's go back to when the Blue Jays were terrible.
I don't want to do
Not
this.
a playoff team. So let's go to 2018. Adam pulled up a lineup card from, when was it, July of 2018?
No, this is from September 26th. This is a tweeted picture from Ben Nicholson-Smith. So this is a lineup
Friend
card.
of the show, Ben Nicholson-Smith.
So the lineup card from September 26th. In left field, we have McKinney. In center field, we have Pilar. At DH, we had Justin Smoke. In right field, Randall Grichuk. First base, Rowdy Tellez, who I think might have been a rookie that year. At third base, we had Aldemez Diaz. Our catcher was a combo of McGuire and Jansen, who were also just kind of
rookies
of their MLB careers. Shortstop was Richard Urania. And at second base, we had John Birdie.
This is a AAA team, gang.
Yeah. So here's a list of who we had on the bench that day. We had Anthony Alford, Jonathan Davis, Lourdes Gurriel, but he was playing second base back then.
Right. Remember, I think Lourdes was the last player on this team to have the yips
Yeah.
Remember when he couldn't throw the ball from second to first? And then they send him down to turn him into a left fielder. Now he's got like the biggest arm in baseball, so yeah. I love it. But yeah.
Teoscar Hernandez and Devin Travis round out the notable names from our bench. Our starting pitchers include Sean Reed Foley, Marco Estrada, Sam Gaviglio, Marcus Stroman, who we traded after that season. Ryan Baraki was a starting pitcher that year. Aaron Sanchez and fan favorite Joe Biagini with those big years of his.
I do not miss 2018.
It was a AAA team. You're absolutely right. We were playing with a AAA team. Like, I know it's easy to look at this list and go, well, we had Jansen and Gurriel and Teoscar and Grichuk, and those guys are all on our team this year, but like, they were...
Yeah, but the 2018 version of those guys were far from where they are now, too.
An extra 3 or 4 years of development behind a lot of those names.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. So,
all right,
it is good to be back. It is good to be back in playoff contention and to be excited about baseball. And us Blue Jays fans truly should be thankful that we are where we are in this development of the team. So
absolutely,
we'll leave it at that. A very, very happy New Year to everybody who has tuned in. Again, we can't thank all of you enough for what you have done for this little podcast that can over the last 18 months. It kind of blows both Adam's and my minds how much progress we have made in the last 18 months, and we're just eternally grateful to everyone who tunes in and gives us a click or a listen or leaves a comment or shoots us a message or whatever. The interactiveness of all of you is so much fun, and we really appreciate it. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at Walkoff Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, the Walkoff Podcast. We've got TikTok. We've got our Discord up. It is still free to join. We'll have a link just underneath the YouTube here or within the show notes, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next year. Cheers.
Happy New Year. Yeah, it's funny. That 2018 season, man, I feel like the only reason I even tuned into Blue Jays games that year was just hoping that we would get some sort of like an update on guys like Vladdy and Bo.
Yeah, me too.
And now here they are.
Too.
It's just totally panned out, and it's pretty incredible. So
yeah, it is.